Hello, hello. We're back for another positive talk. Got several this week, which makes this week a good week no matter how busy it is because positive talks are just fun to do. And excited to do today's positive talk. And thank you for all of the love that everyone has been sharing on all my other social platforms. I really appreciate that. Hello. Wow, I'm
Hi,
refrain. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Got a haircut today, so thriving.
Oh, it's the best. I need to go tomorrow. It's the
Yeah,
best.
apparently this is like a really busy time for haircuts because everyone's trying to get them before they go see their family for Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
So
It's good to
if
know.
you, if you haven't made an appointment yet, you want to make sure you do that.
Yeah. No, I have to do that tomorrow.
How was your day so far?
It was good. I'm in LA, so I took a walk, um, and just like ran a couple errands, and it was very, very chill.
How is LA? I
It's
know
good.
that.
I'm from New York, so it's like a different pace.
Yeah, I haven't lived in LA. I have lived in New York, but I have visited LA, and I know that a lot of my friends here recently have been showing like pictures and stuff. And I mean, you guys have had a lot of fires over there on the West Coast, so dealing with all that fun stuff.
Yeah, there's some downfalls for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but there's not rain and there's not cold. Um,
Yeah.
and that I'm kind of grateful for. So
Yeah, we're definitely starting to get cold here. We had a really nice day today, but it is definitely hoodie weather here in Virginia, so
yeah.
I'm having to adapt to that for sure.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Virginia, I feel like doesn't get as crazy cold.
Yeah. Right
Yeah.
now we're like in my favorite season because I love the fall and all the leaves changing colors. I've had a couple people reach out to me and they're like, "You're posting a lot of pictures with the leaves." I'm like, "Yeah, because it lasts for like 2 weeks and then it's gone. And like winter is kind of depressing for me. I don't enjoy it, but fall
Yeah.
is like my favorite."
Yeah. Yeah. I like summer. I'm in, I'm in the right place, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can kind of
Sure.
jump into a discussion.
Yeah, of course. My name is Brett Quigley. I'm 31 years old. I live in LA. Um, I think a lot of our discussion today will be on sobriety. I am 5 years sober. Um, and I think that's just my journey throughout that has been really interesting, both, ups and downs. And I think in like talking about it's important because I probably wouldn't have gotten sober if I didn't hear other people's stories. So any chance I get to talk about it, I try to. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for that.
I definitely think that when it comes to those types of journeys, and I mean any journey that we're on, when we share it with other people, I think it helps people feel a little bit less alone in their own journey. Because I think the biggest thing when it comes to dealing with struggles is when it makes us think that we are doing it by ourselves. And anytime that you can kind of share that experience, it definitely picks a weight up off of your shoulder that is kind of there when you're feeling like you're fighting that battle alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's yeah definitely really important, and um, yeah, it's great to like hear what people overcome and like their different like stories and um, how they get onto the other side. So
Yeah. So what would you say was like your turning point when you were just like, I need to get to the other side?
so I had woken up in a hospital for this. It was the sixth time that I ended up in the hospital for drinking. So just I literally like with all I went out the night before. I had all good intentions. I really never meant to get like that. It was always with good intention. It was just to see friends. It was just to go out and have fun. And the last time, the sixth time, it was after I had gone to rehab. I've tried to get sober. I had relapsed, and I literally like took the tubes off of my arms, and I was like, okay, what do I want in life? I was like, what do I want? And I'm never gonna get it like doing what I'm doing. I like want a family, and I want, like a relationship and all of these things that, what life is supposed to be about. And I was so drowned in like drinking and partying, and I think that was really like the turning point, like a reflection of like am I gonna get to where I want to be?
Yeah. We kind of talked a little bit about that yesterday on the live that I did with my friend, and we just kind of touched on it very briefly when it comes to making that decision, when it comes to saying, okay, this is not the life that I want to live anymore. And that can be a really difficult transition because a lot of times your life has a lot of connections to whether it's people, coworkers, your environment. And I think that a lot of people think it's just as easy as just not picking up the glass and drinking. But a lot of times that there's a lot more changes going on than just that. And I think that when it comes to like the repetitive cycle of trying to stop and then it coming back, it's a lot of times, I mean, even I have dealt with trying to leave a certain thing behind in my past, but there's a lot of things that have tied me to it that I had to learn to let go. How was that journey kind of for you?
Yeah, they always say like when I first tried to get sober, I was 24. Um, I I flew off to rehab, and they kept saying people, places, and things, and that's kind of what you're describing is like all of these things that are like associated with drinking and people too. And some of the people are really good people. It's not that they're bad people. It's just like they remind you of um, drinking, and you went out and partied, and that was what your relationship was about. And those people I kind of had to like stay away from, not because of them being bad or anything. It was just like a protection for myself. So I definitely had to do that. I think everyone has to do that a little bit, um, and change like their patterns. Like I didn't go out as much. Um, I like tried to find the beauty in like simple things, and that could be like cookies, or like ice cream, or like running. Like those things became more exciting
Yeah.
once I gave it up. So
Yeah, I just yesterday I saw a post that someone shared about Jessica Simpson. I'm not sure if you follow her journey or at all, but I saw where the media had picked up a picture and they shared it. It almost came off in more of a negative, attacking way of her as a person instead of congratulations on your sobriety type of journey. But they were showing her life and just showing a picture of her. It kind of looked like she was just at some friend's house, just being herself, but it came off as more of an attack. Have you kind of experienced kind of stuff like that?
like an attack on like not drinking, you mean?
Just life after the drinking has come to an end.
um I think there was like I don't think people understand it, and I think that's like part of the issue is, and that goes for like mental health as well. It goes for so much in like the society, like human issues, is like people don't understand it. So I think specifically in the beginning it was like people just didn't get that like I literally couldn't drink, and it was like it was literally an issue, and it was something that I think was more life or death than people understood. So I don't think people attacked me. I just don't think they understood it. Um, and that could be a little difficult when you're kind of like in like a war in your mind, and you're like,
Yeah.
should I, not drink? Should I not? Should I drink? And um, I think that could be a little dangerous, even though I don't think there's like ill intent for those people who don't get it. It's just they don't get it.
Yeah. I I think that a lot of people are like, you know what? Like, this is how alcohol affects me as a person. And they're like, if you just know when to stop, like, you'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that when it comes to anything, and like you said, like comparing it to like mental health as well, like every single person is different, and knowing that some people have the journey of it consuming their life instead of just being something that can be, okay, tonight's we're going to have fun with friends drinking, and that's perfectly fine. And it's important for people to realize that something that functions well in one person's life doesn't necessarily function that way in someone else's life. And when someone has like the courage to say, I'm not doing this, like respecting that boundary is something that friends have to really get good at.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was really lucky. Um, my friends like saw it go through like the whole process, so I'm very, very lucky the people like I have in my life. So very
So
thankful.
when it comes to the journey at the beginning of it, so like when you first started drinking, did you like notice anything that was kind of different compared to like seeing your friends drink versus like you drinking?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. When I went to college, like when I went away to college, I was like very rebellious, and I was like, I want to do what I want to do, and you know, I definitely like got written up a lot. I threw parties a lot. So, and I also went to the hospital like a few times while I was in college, or 3 times, I think. So, yes, for sure, right away, it was like 0 to 100 for me personally. Um, but I don't think everyone, it might be more progressive for other people. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, when it comes to their journey, I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that struggle with that and are trying to overcome that in ways because you see it impacting the people around you, whether it's people that love and care about you or whether it's people that kind of hang out with you because you are the fun person to hang out with. How did your relationships kind of shift, kind of going through that whole process?
Um, well, my relationships with my like family and my closest friends, it was all positive, and that's because I think throughout my like journey, they knew that it was something that I needed to do. Um, the only thing that changed is I don't make like party friends anymore. So I don't go out and like get random people's numbers and like pretend we're gonna hang out and be best friends. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. I more so I guess the relationships I have definitely gotten better. But I also kind of I don't know have like a tighter, more intimate group of people I guess around me maybe. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to building relationships with people, like intentionally kind of developing, I mean, you have to be intentional about it if you're trying to kind of stay that path that you're on now. And when you create friendships intentionally, I think that they have like that meaning behind those friendships. And I think that when it comes to saying, hey, I'm not going to drink, like at our age, that's kind of hard to avoid in a lot of ways. Because, I mean, you go to a wedding, there's alcohol. When you get invited to dinner, there's the chance that people will be drinking. So, kind of navigating through that in a way that
yeah.
making them aware of that. Is it freezing on your side like mine?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why.
You're fine. So, when it comes to kind of choosing activities and things to do now that kind of aren't like revolving around the consumption of alcohol, like how have you kind of navigated through that?
Um, yeah, I, in the beginning it was more difficult. I literally like almost locked myself in my room, and like it was hard for like first 3 months, I would say. And it's a process, like regardless. So even like a year into it, it was like you kind of like reflect on yourself, and there's like a lot of stuff you have to like heal from, and um, so that I think is another part to the whole thing. But um, like now it doesn't bother me at all. Like, cause I really killed off my desire, I feel like for alcohol, or anything really. So I, but I also don't really love going out anymore. Like I've replaced kind of that interest with, working out or health and wellness, massages. Like, I don't know, like it just doesn't appeal to me as much. But that took time for sure to get there.
Yeah.
So
Do you feel like when it came to like alcohol that that was kind of like a social thing that you were doing, or do you think that there was things that you were kind of using alcohol to avoid certain things that maybe you had to confront later, after you chose to kind of leave the alcohol behind?
yeah, I think that's like a big part of it, right? Like I think not only is it like a social lubricant, but I think a lot of people use substances to like self medicate, or if they're uncomfortable. And I think I was very uncomfortable with myself when I was like younger, and I think that that's something you just go through. Um, but it's hard to like pinpoint exactly like this is exactly what I was, drinking for. I can't say, but I could certainly say that it certainly was like a cover up for anxiety, depression sometimes. So those are things that
Yeah.
I have dealt with in my life. So like, yeah, it could definitely be used for that.
Yeah. I mean, people say it all the time, like, well, maybe I can do this after a few drinks, just because
Yeah.
it seems to remove the inhibitions that we have sometimes when it comes to social engagement and being around people that we are anxious around. And I mean, I am the type of person when I've drank that I am more of a just louder person. I think that I do have anxiety being around people. I prefer small groups and people I know than going places where I don't know anyone.
Mhm.
I've definitely been the type of person that I'm like, I'm crazy no matter what. Like my sisters and I, like we've done ridiculous things and people are like, wow, you guys were so drunk, weren't you? And I'm like, no, that was sober us. Like we're just weird in general. But I definitely think that it's important for people to realize that, like, kind of understanding why they like use alcohol. Is it something that's just purely social, or is it something you're doing because you feel the need that if you don't, you won't fit in? Is it you're trying to calm nerves that uh, would be out of control if you try to interact with people without it? I think it's just important for people to kind of take note of that and understand themselves because it's different for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of the above. I think it's, all of it, really. Um, yeah. So prominent, really, in our culture. To like every holidays revolves around it, and um,
Yeah. And
it is hard to like avoid. But
I feel like even because this is something that I was discussing when I first started these positive talks was I feel like the gay culture in general is kind of very much wrapped around alcohol in a way that other groups not so much, mainly because I mean, for the longest time, the places where gays could congregate and be around each other in a safe space were usually like the gay bars, and gay parties at people's homes at private places, and a lot of times alcohol and other substances are just like there, and a lot of people in the LGBT community kind of fall into categories of abuse just because it's something that's there, and a lot of times there's pressures within that as well within the community.
yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's much more magnified in the LGBT community, and I think you're right. It was because like the community was born in bars, and uh, it's just become like a part of I guess, culture. They're like the culture, and I also think up until recently things weren't like accepting, and people weren't allowed to really do them. You know, they weren't allowed to. So I think people forget how new it is that it's like people are actually able to like live their life, and like it's crazy. It's crazy now thinking about it that it took so long for that to happen, but um, yeah, I hope in the future, you know, it's not that way for like the kids coming up now, you know,
Yeah.
since yeah.
I mean, you and I are pretty close in age, and just thinking about like when I first came out, like my freshman year of college, and where we are now when it comes to LGBT, because social media had just kind of come out right towards the beginning of my freshman year. I know MySpace kind of existed, like AIM existed, but like Facebook came out right as I was leaving high school and going into college. So like community and being able to kind of fit into the LGBT community, like there weren't a lot of like social groups online to kind of get to know the community as a whole. You kind of had to dive in head first and kind of just immerse yourself into it. And there weren't always the best role models to grab the young kids' hands and be like, hey, here's a healthy lifestyle to choose and the things that you can be. A lot of
Yeah.
times it was like every single weekend to hang out with the community. You were at the bars or at the parties just because that's where you could be yourself and not put on that fake act of whatever
Mm,
we need it to be accepted in society.
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's definitely crazy how like far I guess we've come with it. Um, but I think yeah, you're right. Like since it now is more normal, I guess, or like everyone's just kind of more of themselves. It's we're gonna thankfully see kind of a variation of like different types of people in the community rather than just you know it being so party based. Um,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's just we were kind of like forced into this like a bar scene, and I don't think that will be the case. Thankfully, you know, in the future. So
Yeah. I was saying that like the pandemic is like this time of like shift where we get to do a lot of start overs. And I think that at the time the gay bars kind of remained in the dark, uh, just because that was a safe space for our community back in the day. And now gay people are starting to be able to present themselves in daylight as someone part of the community and be proud of that. And I'm hoping that with all the things that have kind of closed down, because I saw a lot of really amazing historical LGBT spaces closed because of the pandemic. I'm hoping that with the pandemic coming to an end soon, hopefully, that we will start to see some things opening up for the LGBT community that present our community spaces to be around other LGBT people in a more alcohol free, drug free, sex free zone where people are able to communicate and share passions in a way that's not so wrapped around things that have kind of like strung a lot of people around by the neck, unfortunately, in our community. And then the years of healing that a lot of people have to go through. Some, unfortunately, don't make it through that journey, but hopefully we start to see some new things presented for the LGBT community.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's like definitely important. And part of like I got so kind of wrapped into this because I go to you know a program and I hear people's stories and I get so like heartfelt, you know, like I get like very like oh my god, these people have gone through so much and it's like so unfair, and it really made me think a lot about like the youth and like how are they doing, you know, like and it really concerns me, like it concerns me. And yeah, it's scary, like the statistics of suicide and all of this, like drug abuse, anxiety, homelessness. It's terrifying. And I don't know the solution, but I definitely think you're right. Like if there was more variation and just not like this party vibe, then it would give people, more healthy outlook on life. So,
I think that a great start is just having more role models that are loud and proud of what they're doing. That you don't necessarily have to go to the gay bars, you don't have to go to the gay prides. Like you can live authentically. And I constantly am trying to show people like there's no limitations to who an LGBT person can become. Like there are people who don't run around screaming that they are part of the community, but they're still there and they're still someone with a story to prove that we are capable of doing anything. And I know that like for you personally, like you said that you've got like your business that you are working on. And I think that
mm,
that is like a phenomenal example of something that you're doing that isn't kind of the stereotype of, oh, I'm a gay person, I'm going to open a gay bar. I'm a gay person, I'm going to do this. You started a business. How did that kind of start for you?
yeah. Yeah. When I was a kid, when I was like, I must have been like in middle school, I had like a journal and I would create these like, I guess like my version of just like streetwear as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it would be like now, I think it was somewhat similar actually. So after getting sober, like I was like, okay, I almost pretty much, died a few times. So I need to make sure that I do everything I want to do in life. And I kind of had like a bucket list essentially. Um, and one of the things I always wanted to do was create a clothing brand. And I had been kind of making friends jackets for a while, for like their birthday or whatever. And I basically just made that into like a business. And I kind of was like, all right, let's do it. And it became a very much like very personal thing. I don't know. I wanted to do it. I don't necessarily like care how it goes. I almost just am so happy that I did something that I said I would do. Um, and the photo shoots are with my friends, and the photographers are my friends, and it's all um, very much like a little family. I feel so. I'm super grateful that I was able to do that. And I still do it now, and um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a small little passion project where, like, at the end of the day, like, you're doing it because it's something that you love.
Yeah.
You're not doing it because you want to become a millionaire from it. Like, if you are able to pull in friends and have fun while you're on that journey, like,
Mhm.
yeah, there will be things that you learn along the way. There will be things where you're like, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But if you're having fun while doing it, it definitely makes the journey a lot more fun when it comes to involving the people in your life with that type of project.
Yeah. Absolutely. It. Yeah. I think you're completely right. I think it's like very authentic to like what I'm feeling, and like whatever I write on the jacket or the shirt is something that like I have in my mind that symbolizes something. So it might not make sense to someone. I don't know. If that's the case, they can ask me about it. But for me, it's like it's kind of like if if I feel something, I'll do it, and we'll see how it goes. But it's trial and error, so it's like it's definitely exciting, but um, it's challenging a little bit too. So
Yeah. I mean, that's all we can do is just try. I think that a lot of people don't try, and those are the ones that don't end up like showing up for themselves and actually creating something that could take their life in a completely different direction. I think that you stepping through your fear, like
mm,
that's an important lesson to learn in life. And it gets easier sometimes, but then there's always something else that you have to step through fear wise to kind of level up to the next stage in your life. And I think that for me, stepping off of working for corporate America and just being my own supporter and running my own platforms that make me enough money right now to survive. That's scary to take that leap. Like I kind of got pushed off the cliff because the company I was working for downsized, but I had already been kind of doing stuff on the side that I was passionate about. And when I got pushed, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to jump onto something else corporate. I'm going to do it myself. This is scary as heck, but you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to try my best and see what comes of it. And it's definitely been a crazy journey. But
Yeah.
having people around me, it's definitely been that empowering thing that I needed to kind of keep me going because it's a new like journey every single day that I go out here and try to do something with this.
Yeah. No, I think what you're doing is so like cool and different, and you kind of shed light on little things, and it's like it's so powerful. I think we forget like how powerful like little things are to people. It might be just happy, like make one person happy, and you know, so like those things are so important. I think you're doing that now, which is awesome. So you talk about
Yeah,
role models. I
it's
think you're very much like that as well. Like definitely.
I mean I grew up as like the older sibling, so I had two younger sisters. So I think a guiding light for me my entire life was like I have to make sure that I do my best because I've got two younger sisters that are watching me and looking at me as a role model. So like when I see celebrities doing stuff that are like kind of foolish, I'm like, do you know how many people are like looking up to you? Like you have this ability to do amazing things. And yeah, we all mess up, but like use that as a way to be like, you know what? I messed up. Like, here's what I'm going to do to make up for that, or I'm going to apologize for messing up
Yeah.
and just be like, I'm human. But it's never felt like a weight on my shoulder to do stuff like this. But I was at a point where I was like, what am I good at? I didn't really know. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm good at like loving people and being kind to people. I'm like, but you can't make a career out of that. Like, there's no jobs where people are like, thank you for being kind. Here's a paycheck. But like, I found a way to kind of do that. And it was kind of a crazy journey.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's really funny. It's funny that you bring up kind of like role models and like I guess celebrity and um, all that stuff. I have a little brother too, so I get like that aspect a little bit. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So in your life, is there someone that you've kind of looked up to as kind of like your own personal role model?
Um, like like someone in my family or
Anyone?
um, I do look up to. I guess I kind of have to differentiate like connecting with someone and looking up to someone. So I really love like artistic people and the creative people, and um yeah, so like I love Lana Del Rey, like the singer.
Okay.
It's like someone I love, and she's also spoken about like her own like battles with addiction, and so that's someone that I definitely like look up to for sure. And then you know I like am very close with my grandma. I love her, so she's someone I definitely look up to, and she just the way that she treats other people. So I certainly like try to do that. So yeah. How about you? Who do you
Yeah.
look up to?
That yeah. I yeah, so grandfather was definitely probably family member wise, like a huge role model for me. Anytime I get a compliment of you remind me of your grandfather, like I'm just like beaming because I saw him as a person like he grew up in a very rural part of Virginia, but moved to New York to be a doctor. And he had to quickly learn that the closed-minded views of like people in Virginia were not going to get him in anywhere in life. And he was the type of person that he wanted to know more. Like he, when he moved back to Virginia, he was like working in DC as a doctor, and he started working with people like of the Muslim faith. And instead of like being against it or anything like that, he started researching it. He started like just, he wanted to know everyone, and he accepted everyone's reality as a true reality and
Mm.
didn't judge people. And like that pulled so many people. Like when he passed away a few years ago, I went to his memorial service, and hearing every single person stand up and speak about him, I was just blown away that I was lucky enough to have him as a grandfather, but hearing everyone kind of speak about him as a role model, like he was one of the first doctors in Virginia that worked with AIDS patients in the 80s,
Mm.
and he didn't wear like the hazmat suits or anything. He was just like, these are people, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to treat them any differently than any other patient.
Yeah.
And my grandmother a couple years ago gave me like a magazine that had like an article in it about my grandfather and the AIDS like epidemic. So it was very interesting to kind of see, as a gay person, my grandfather, before I was even born, fighting for something for the community I later became a part of.
Mm. Yeah, that's amazing. It's going back and like looking at that era is crazy, and uh, it's I don't know. That's really cool that he was like such a big part of it, um, and it's crazy like the stigma that existed. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
really cool.
mean, in the article that was written about him, like they referred to it as like the gay cancer. Like
Yeah.
that's how it was referred to back then. And when my grandmother gave it to me, she was like, now don't judge the way that this is written. Like that was what it was called in the 80s. Like that is exactly what people walking around in the hospital was calling it. So she was just like, don't like judge your grandfather's quotes based upon that, because at the time that's what people called everything.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting like looking back and seeing what would be so, not accepted to say and do back then because there was less, exposure, less knowledge. Um, and I like look now at like our, I guess our culture, our world, and this type of like, I guess ignorance, you could say, like exists, and it's like I don't know. I just wonder what now we'll look back in like 20 years and be like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely moving quickly. Everything's happening very fast these
Yeah.
days. Um, I think that it's interesting that for both of us, when we mentioned people, uh, when it came to role models, there weren't a lot of LGBT uh, mentions there. I have a lot of people that I like really admire in the community, but I think that that's because I really dove in and sought out gay people to like communicate with and get to know, just to kind of better understand myself as well as the community as a whole.
Mm.
But like with the AIDS that happened in the 80s, like that wiped a lot of people of the generation before us that could have been role models for our community. So when it comes to us now, like we are the new generation of people where we're sharing our stories, we're sharing the things that we have overcome, and I think that that's important for a lot of people to realize, is that we're now stepping into those positions of role models for the next generation.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, we didn't like see like gay people, I feel like on TV. Um, so I always gravitated towards like, I don't know, women, you know?
Yes.
And like I never really thought about it like that, but you're completely right. Like there just wasn't a lot of people out there. And I feel like the representation was also not very positive. So um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stigma, or was a lot of, is a lot of stigma, I guess.
I think there's a lot of trauma that we're all still trying to heal from being surrounded by all the different negative stereotypes that existed and were placed on our community as a whole. Because, like, for the longest time, I used to take it as a compliment when someone was like, I wouldn't have thought you were gay.
Mm,
And I was just like, yes. But now I'm like, that's kind of like an insult, like to
yeah,
assume, like to slap that type of stereotype on our community. And I
yeah,
shouldn't be proud that someone is saying that they don't think that I'm gay or that I don't fit in with my community that I'm a part of. And I think that that's something that I had to heal from
mm,
because there was that negative stigma on our community. So when someone was telling me that I didn't fit in, I was proud of that. And I think that I've had to flip through healing to understand that that was not something that I should feel about the community I'm a part of.
yeah, absolutely. We're conditioned to think what is out there, and when we grew up, it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of positive stuff. I grew up from a, like pretty conservative, I would say, upbringing that has evolved. They've evolved, but like we didn't know really. I don't know. There was not much exposure, not much knowledge. Um, so now I don't know. Was that your situation as well? Like a more conservative? Yeah.
Yeah, like my grandfather was part of that movement, but it was never really spoken of. So when I was little, all I would hear was kind of what I heard from people at church. And then
Mhm.
when you get to like I would say middle school, maybe late elementary school, you start to hear the word gay passed around in a negative way
Mhm.
towards guys that were more feminine or whatever they wanted to tag that with. And so for me, like learning about that and not really having access to internet like kids do these days,
Yeah.
like it was kind of I only learned about the words when it was being passed around as a negative thing. And when I came out, I felt like I really didn't know me or the community or what it meant to be gay. I just knew that I was, but there
Mhm.
was no definition of that for me to understand and connect to.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And I think when I was a teenager, my thought process, I always thought of like um, what we were talking about before, like more of like the party, like I didn't really like think at that time I didn't connect. I was really into partying, but um, and it's just not that way. Like there's so many people that are just, I don't know, I think everyone's very normal for the
Yeah.
most part. I think people don't like, I don't know why that's so surprising, but everyone's just a human being and everyone wants the same things. And um, that's why it's like really disheartening when people are, so negative, you know.
Yeah. And I think that the nice thing is that there are more and more LGBT people that are putting their stories out for the world to see, whether it's online or publishing a book in some way. But like, I think that it's just enjoyable to kind of connect to other LGBT people and not have to translate a heterosexual like narrative to fit the lifestyle. Because I've read lots of like love stories or I hear love songs being sung by straight people, and like in my head, I'm like, change it to a guy, two guys doing this. And even until recently, like my brain, like what it couldn't wrap itself around the idea of two guys standing somewhere getting married to each other. Like, I literally had dreams where I was getting married to a girl in a white wedding dress because my brain was only seeing that around me. And it felt so foreign to think of two guys getting married. But I'm seeing more and more of it on social media. So it's making it more realistic for me as a person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great thing. And yeah, I don't know. I can't wait for eventually to get married and like all of that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's wild how long like that all took. To be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I remember celebrating when like they ruled in the Supreme Court that it was like legal for like gay people to get married, and like I remember how excited I was for that, but like we're still on the chopping block. Our whole community, I think the trans community is under the largest amount of attack in our country right now. But
Mm.
like when you look at our community worldwide, like the LGBT community is still very much the focus of a lot of closed-minded people. And I think that it's important for us to kind of realize that we have to focus a little less on our own story and look outside of it and realize that we might have found happiness, we might have found a safe space in a city or in a relationship or with our friend group, or we've created a social bubble on our platforms to where we don't see all the hate that exists. But when you kind of like take off those rose-colored glasses, like we've still got a long way to go, and there's still a lot of fighting worth putting the effort into. But it's important to also celebrate the movements that we've made as well as a community.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow, I think. And actually, going back to just like being sober, it's I've had to, come to the realization that, that there are those like hard pills to swallow, and something that is like so innocent and like pure to us is like it's weird to me that like people such a negative, feelings towards other people. But I think you're 100% right. Outside of New York and California, I think there's I don't know. It's not. I think people in LA and New York like just assume everyone in America is kind of like.
Progressive and open-minded.
Yeah, I don't think it's sad, but it's true. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
That goes with like women as well, and like
yeah.
race
I
issues. Yeah.
I always tell people, I'm like, when you are very loud and proud, and you are in your safe little city bubble of like liberal-minded, open-minded people, be aware that there are gay children being born into conservative parts of the world every day,
Yeah.
and they deal with the consequences of us stirring the pot a little bit too hard. Uh, I know I've lived in very rural areas until here recently moving to Richmond, and I heard and saw things that people are like, no, people don't say things like that anymore. I'm like, oh, they do.
Mhm.
Like, it is in their regular vocabulary. And when you are standing in a crowd of people where if someone throws a punch at you because you're gay and the crowd joins them, instead of living in a city where if someone did that to a gay kid, most of the people around would defend the gay kid. Like it's very different in the more rural parts for sure.
Sad. Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad. I um, I imagine Richmond's like kind of a different. I have family in Richmond actually, so I was there last year. It
Okay.
seemed like a very chill, laid back, place.
Yeah. When I first moved here and I would go for a run, I used to send like my sister pictures of like all the pride flags that I saw,
Mm.
because like where I lived before, I had an equality sticker on my car,
Mm.
and that's about the only LGBT thing that you would ever really see. And moving here and just I'm like, I counted like 30 pride flags today on my run, and like I'm just blown away and amazed by that. Whereas like in bigger cities, that's just kind of normal, where you see it just
Yeah.
in the businesses like front window, like they've got just like the rainbow there to show that they're an accepting place. I
Yeah.
wasn't used to that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. I think it like to us like to me it's kind of wild, but um because I grew up like from a conservative background, but I don't think compared to a lot of the other like parts of the country. So in New York, I grew up in the suburbs of New York, and I don't think the like hatred existed as much, um, thankfully. And I mean, in New York City, no one cares, so it's like it's weird when you hear people and they like demonize transgender people as if they're like evil. That I don't get it. It it has to be someone who just doesn't know any people who are transgender or gay or whatever. So everyone's
Yeah.
really pretty normal.
I feel like the more we can normalize it, like put it to where it can't be ignored. Like there needs to be LGBT people in every single setting in existence. So if there are TV shows where they're not playing real characters, like real historical people,
Mm,
throw some LGBT people into that storyline.
yeah.
Just like it needs to be all different ethnicities and religions and genders all thrown into the mix. Like, I think that a lot of the hatred comes from the ignorance and the
Mm,
fear of something that is different and unknown for people. I mean, the human mind, like, people just aren't taught to be like explorative of something that's different. They're taught different is bad, and that's never good.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's history repeating itself. It's like every generation has its battles, and eventually it just irons out. Hopefully, that will be the case with all of this. But I
Yeah.
agree. I don't know why we do that as human beings, like
I mean,
attacking.
even within our own community, we do that,
Yeah,
unfortunately. And that's something that we have to get better at as a community as a whole, because, I mean, even within our community, like racism is an issue. Even within our community, it seems like the LGB people forgot that the T was also there from the beginning fighting for equality. And some people have just kind of let that ball fall instead of
mm,
standing up when their rights are on the table.
yeah, totally. I think the goal is just to treat everyone, with respect and as like human beings. So I agree.
Accept everyone's reality, even if it doesn't like align with yours. Like that's kind of throwing it back to like the sobriety thing. Like just because one person can drink alcohol a certain way doesn't mean the other person can. But just because you can drink this way doesn't mean that that's this person's reality. And you don't get to say, well, you're wrong. That's not
Yeah,
right because my reality doesn't align with that. So obviously you're doing something wrong.
yeah, you're right. I think we're like realizing that not everything is black and white, and there's shades to everything, shades to addiction, and shades to mental health, and shades to whatever it might be. So I completely agree. We're all different, and people need different things, and like to be happy and to be healthy and successful. So it's true. It's yeah.
So I see that we're getting close to the hour. So
Mm,
I wanted to ask if you, because for me, all the content that I create is kind of created to kind of give the little me that existed in the world that didn't have the type of advice that I try to give now. If you could go back and give little you advice from all the experiences you've been through now in life, what would your advice be?
Um, okay, actually, someone who I love very much said this the other day, and I like completely agree. I think what I would say to myself is it's amazing what you could do in life once you stop giving a fuck what people think. And I think I would
Yeah.
have stopped caring a lot sooner. So,
It's crazy how, like, as kids, we are taught so much to blend in or be a part of the crowd. And
yeah,
then our entire adult lives, we fight to like stand out and be different than the people that we tried so hard to be like when we were little.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it's just about being like authentic. And that could be doesn't have to be different. You could like things that are very basic, or you could like things that are, different. It's just about, in my opinion, about being authentic. So,
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I try to do really well. I don't always do well because I think we as humans are flawed and can be judgmental. But
yeah,
I try to not make statements that are judgmental of things that I don't understand or I don't agree with, just because a statement that you say can have an impact on someone that you don't even realize it impacts them in that way. And because, like, bumping into you, if we didn't bump into each other and actually start talking about sobriety, I would not be aware of that. Um,
Yeah.
but making a judgmental statement about someone who struggles with that would instantly have an impact on you that if you weren't brave enough to say, that's actually something I've struggled with, that could negatively impact you.
Yeah.
And I think that going through life, I've tried really hard not to make judgmental statements. I think that that is really hard to do, but I've created a space where hopefully all the people in my life will call me out on it if I do make something of a statement that could be taken in a negative way.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that I have tried to do my whole life because I have met people who have gone through different things that are traumatic to them. And then I've watched people around them make statements that I knew because I knew my friend or the person next to me. But I was like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And I've been through some trauma as well that some statements that people have made were really triggering. And I had to go home and unpack all the feelings that a stupid comment brought up into my mind. So I think that just kind of going through life and being aware that we don't have to be so judgmental. Like, different is okay.
Mhm.
And just because someone's different doesn't mean you have to change and follow their rules. Like, you can be different. Like,
Yeah.
I usually nod when someone's like saying something I disagree with. And I was just like, it's okay. We can have, it's better to try to balance it than try to make everyone run to one side of the room.
Yeah. I agree. I love that, and I agree. I like try not to judge things I don't know. I'd rather talk to someone about whoever, like I don't know, if it's an experience and learn from them. And
Yeah.
it's really, that's true for sure.
So to wrap things up and to kind of tie everything together, I know that there are a lot of people out there who are struggling with sobriety in a lot of different ways. The pandemic flipped the world upside down,
Yeah.
and people's mental health and normal was completely destroyed in a lot of ways. What what is some advice that you have that has really helped you kind of wrap yourself around sobriety and the understanding of moving past it?
Yeah, I think it's it's like important to acknowledge like that like addiction, all of this stuff. Like there is genetic components. There's issue. It's an issue kind of somewhat out of your control, but you could also like you could be predisposition to it, but um, you have the power to do whatever you want. So for me, what has helped me is definitely leaning on like people who I know have known for forever, seen me like at bad places and good places, and um, who I know love me and care for me, and also to like remember exactly what I want in life, and like I think about that every day, like what do I want, and how am I going to get there, and it's never the answer is never going to be drinking, for me. It's it leads me down like a dark path. It doesn't get me where I want to go. I feel like shit. So yeah, like the goal that I have, it's never gonna happen. So I would suggest the person who's trying to get sober or thinks about it is to think about what you want in life and almost like manifest it. I believe in energy, so I believe in prayer. I believe that you put something out to the universe and it could come back. And I think, yeah, just think about what you want and keep that as your focus and become obsessed with doing what you want to do in life instead of being obsessed with alcohol.
Yeah, that's phenomenal advice. And I think that when it comes to having people that love you, like sometimes hearing something from someone that loves you is a little hard to hear when it's them pointing out something that they really want to help you change.
Yeah.
But also, like, when it comes to letting the universe know what you want, like, shout it out loud. Like, I thought it was a fun activity to kind of ask the people around me to define me with like a dream career, define me with a word, just to kind of understand what I was projecting to the world. Like, what do people think of me? Like, when they hear my name, what pops in their head first? And like, if you're not getting the answers that you want from your friends and people that meet you, then you're not projecting loud enough for the world to hear what your dreams are. Uh, it doesn't mean that your dreams aren't possible. It just means that you need to make it even more clearer for the universe to know that that's what you desire. Because if the universe hears it, like it will start to put the things in place for you to use as stepping stones. And then once you start the journey, like as long as you're ready to step through all those different layers of fear, like you're going to get there. And people will present themselves all the time. You'll meet someone on the street and they'll be like, oh, I know someone who works here and they would love to like connect you with that person. And that's how life works sometimes.
I 100% agree. I think it's like so important. I agree. It's exactly
Awesome.
how I kind of live my life as well. So we're on the same page.
Yeah. And I mean, LA is a beautiful place to like connect with people. Like,
Yeah.
I think that having so many people go there that are just trying to, because a lot of people move to LA to chase a dream. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um, and anytime that you can kind of pass people along to move them closer towards their dream, like I personally love doing that. Like that's one of my favorite things. Like that's why I do coaching, is because I'm like, ooh, I get to like give someone a stepping stone towards their dream. I think that
Yeah.
that's just like the best thing in the world.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's amazing what you do. So
I appreciate that.
appreciate you inviting me on. And
Yeah, I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I know that it's kind of weird to do something like this, like if you haven't done lives before, but
yeah,
I absolutely loved connecting with you, and I think that you brought a lot of beautiful perspective for people listening. So thank you so much for doing this, and hopefully we will stay connected over the years. We
yeah,
can kind of laugh about the craziness that exists today when we're older and looking back.
yeah. I hope so.
Awesome. Well, I will let you go so that you can enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
have a good one. Bye.